Well, hey everyone, and welcome to another Building Pulse. Today we are catching up with Blair Chappell of Williams Corporation, one of the two founding directors. And a lot of you will have heard of them, and a lot of you will have heard of all the kind of media stories that are kind of some are good, some are not so good. But generally, the assumption around those guys, from what I've seen versus what I've witnessed in terms of being involved in some of their projects and journeying with them a little bit along over the years, has been a bit different to how everything gets portrayed in the media. So I'm keen to introduce Blair shortly, so you guys can hear a bit about what they're doing and the journey that they've been on. If you are in the industry, have not been to the centre, the Innovation Hub, we want to meet with you. We want to hear about what you're doing. What are you doing that's innovative? What are you trying differently? And if it's nothing, that's all right. But if you're keen to try things differently, get your butt down here and start having a conversation with us around materials, methodology, procurement, all of these different things that we're exposing people to and get exposed to, that we want to share that knowledge with industry so that we can see the industry flourish and grow and not be building exactly how we were building 50 years ago in another 50 years. So appreciate you coming along with us on this journey. And that was a bit of a ramble from me, but let's go ahead and bring Blair in. All right, man. Well, I thought what would be cool to start with is to give everybody a real quick snapshot of you and Matt's journey from, like, kind of roughly quickly going, but from right back from when you first started doing things together, how you got into what you're doing, and why.
Kind of a hard thing to not remember, but also think on our website we do have a 14-year history book which actually has it in more detail because I'll probably forget otherwise. Like Matthew and I met when we were about 10 years old at, funnily enough, our window suppliers batch, Jeff Moore. And then after the earthquakes, Matt moved down to Christchurch from Nelson where he grew up. And I was studying at the time at Polytech and working at McDonald's. And I'm sort of sick of working at McDonald's, but my father, who I respect a lot, said you're not allowed to leave your job till you get a new one.
Yeah.
So, oh my gosh, who do I know that I could go work for? And call Matthew, and I was sort of post Christchurch earthquake. He said, "Hey mate, do you have like a job I could do over summer? So I know you're back in town." And he said, "Oh, you can just come do some labouring and whatnot." And then that sort of evolved into importing temporary fencing because that was around the law change when you had to have temporary fencing on site.
Yeah.
And then we started to import some composite decking as well and do like labour only build contracts. And then for whatever reason, we decided to build a spec home where we literally went on Trade Me and went Christchurch lowest price. And we bought a section in beautiful neighbours there. So not to be crash, whatever that word is when I say it, but like the lowest social sort of area in Christchurch.
Yeah.
$65,000 section.
Wow.
And everyone presumes that our family funded us into it, which they actually didn't. I think Matthew's father said the best thing I can give you is nothing, so it shows I respect you. So we actually went to a foundation contractor that we knew from doing labour only build contracts and said, "Hey, we want to do the spec home. Do you have 65 grand? If you do you want to buy the land with us? And then that'll give us enough to hopefully be able to get a bank loan for the build, and then we'll cut you in for half the profits and we'll do all the work." And I think we made 12.5 grand off that house, but then the late invoices came through. So then, like, we'd already paid out the person that gave us the money for the land. So about 9 grand. Like, that was very good. And then
Should have stayed at McDonald's.
oh, it's hard work. I honestly, what I know is hard, but anyone who works at McDonald's, I have a lot of respect for it. Is just time goes slow when you're standing in the drive-through with your headset on, looking at the clock, put it that way. And then perhaps we did a few other things during that, as far as temporary fencing, labour only build contracts, did that one spec home. And then we bought 2 as whereas houses to knock down and do 4 on. And it was sort of in that time of the earthquake rebuild sort of was done, so to speak. So you went from having a whole lot of small businesses making a little bit of money, ticking away, to a whole lot sort of not making any money. And that's when we were like, what do we actually like to do out of all these things we do? Because we had trucks and diggers, we had a couple of builders, imported fencing and decking. And we sort of, for whatever reason, landed back at, let's actually try this housing thing. But our next project, the block of 4 we did, we pretty much learnt very quickly the list of things not to do, as far as knocked down 2 houses full of asbestos, sink 2 diggers because what you were told was a well that needed capping is actually the water table, then not being able to remove the asbestos because you can't actually get onto site, but you can't dewater the site because it's full of asbestos, and just a shit show. So we learned a lot about that, of what not to do. And I think our next 4 houses, I think we lost about 40 grand on those 4 houses, but learned a lot of knowledge.
Yeah.
And then we used to sort of go into the whole buy an older property, subdivide off the backyard, do a minor reno on the front house, build a spec on the back house, and sell both of them. And we had like nearly 30 of them, but literally there was like no money in them. And we were just like, what are we doing wrong? Or like, what do we need to change, I should say. And it's just the concept of, say you have to pay $5,000 for a geotech report. If you're building one house on that site, it's $5,000 for that one house. But if you're
Yeah.
doing, say, a block of 5, of course, it's now $1,000 a house equivalent.
Yeah.
And we found a section sort of in Linwood, Christchurch, sort of, I don't know, 3Ks outside the city. And we decided to try put 5 two-story units on it. And it was kind of, I wouldn't say our last hurrah, but it was like, we've got bugger all money because none of us has really worked that well. Even though I've built quite a few houses so far, call it, I think it was
Mm.
12-ish, which was a lot of houses back then. And it was one of those projects where it's like, this should work, but if it doesn't, then we'll go from there. But it was one of those jobs where it was like, you have check every quote, every product spec, you go, why are we using that? What's the price of that specific item? Look at
Mm.
every single line item, going, this has to work. And then we did that block of 5 and finished it and made what we should have been making. And
Yeah.
like, shit, maybe this is the multi-unit space seems to be like where it actually starts to work and balance all these extra costs associated
Mm.
post-quake of geotechs and all the stuff, etc. And then we did, I think it was another block of 5, very similar. And then we one day were looking at a site where it was in the middle of town, and it was quite funny actually. It was a big billboard that's been up for like 2 years on the site. And it had like the old building facade that was there post-quake, the building fell down. Now, that was Matthew's idea, was like, why don't we build, instead of building like a 3 bedroom house, which is worth, say, I can't remember back then, say 600 grand with a garage, what if we just did a 1 bedroom house with no car park? Because then it's going to be the cheapest price point and the best location. And to date, the main issue we've had selling is that people just don't have as much money as what they'd
Mm.
like to have. And we literally called up the people on the billboard sign, which were the old owners. They lived in Acro, an hour and a half away. And then Matt and I said, oh, we'll just drive to see you. We drove there and said, oh, yeah, we'll buy your site. And they probably were like, who are these two 20-year-olds? There's no way they have $1 million for this land, which we didn't at the time. And then we found it before settlement and unconditional. But then we released those 10, we did 10 one beds without car parks on that site. We were worried we'd saturate the market, so we actually didn't develop the whole site because we like
All
10,
right.
we did 16, it could be too many. And we sold out all 10 in like 24, 48 hours.
Wow.
It was kind of like the holy shit, based on principles, this actually did fill a market need. But it still was at the time, and there's like road cones all over the city. Like,
Mm.
just the city was still a fragment of what it is today. Um, and then we went through sort of 1 year of just doing a lot of that kind of product, like 1 and 2 beds without car parks inside the 4 avenues. But it gave us, and everyone said, oh, that land's not worth that much money, or those houses are worth that much, whatever. But it's more because we paid what we believed to be a fair price for the land and everyone else perceived to be more expensive. It actually gave us the ability to scale because we could keep buying sites because everyone else said it's not worth that. And we go, well, if
Yeah.
the numbers work, they work. And it sort of went from there, which I know is a very clean and quick summary. And then for the last 5 years, we've averaged, hopefully, we haven't quite dropped under yet, but we'll probably will soon, delivering a house a day, every day for the last 5 years.
Wow.
I think we've done about 2,300 so far.
Yeah.
Um, there's a whole lot in between, but that's sort of the rough
Yeah.
backstory.
So yeah, so you kind of found this model. So then you've had you kind of found a development model that's kind of worked, and
8.5 years ago.
expanded and gone on from there. But then I've seen you innovate both in terms of how you build, what you build out of, and then also in your funding model compared to most the way you've done it.
Yeah.
So why don't we start with the funding, because that'll be a bit quicker, and then we can get into the meat of what you're doing in terms of how you're building.
funding, the easiest way to summarize the funding model is when we had earlier projects, we had few people would associate with and ask for money and say they funded like one job where they put their money into their lawyer's trust account and we drew it down much like you normally would.
Yep.
And so we had three people like that. And then all of a sudden they might have only had enough money to fund a block of 3 units or 5 units.
Right.
And then when we say we want to do a block of 8, then we still want to fund you, but we don't have enough money for that job.
Yeah.
And we're like, maybe if we made a wholesale fund to amalgamate those three people, for example, where they've got the same security, same everything, but now their money can be used collectively. So they still can fund us and we can then do the jobs that otherwise is themselves they couldn't fund.
Yeah.
We have other people to sort of talk to about money. And then we sort of did that. And then all of a sudden we're like, maybe there's actually a market for this where other people might want to operate in this space and invest with us. And then that sort of grow probably not more than what we thought, but it was well received because,
Yeah.
like, for example, for a while we used well, we still have done like main banks, so we have BNZ, QBank, ASB, etc. And for a while we were one of those banks, like largest property development customers, and the size of what we had in facilities made us the largest customer with them for residential development finance. But that would be a lower amount than what the cost of the one project is that I'm sitting in right now.
Mm.
And then normally, as soon as you become that size with a bank, another bank says, well, we don't want to fund you because we can't see the full picture. We want to be your whole bank. Then, of
Right.
course, you've got risk of now you're reliant on one bank for funding for every single job.
Mm.
And we sort of go, who would you rather have? Say, I don't know, it's 20 to 50 individuals that you know and trust have worked with, or one bank with one bank manager that changes every 2 years.
Mm.
Sort of for a long time was split between, and it still is like banks and our own fund.
Yeah.
But it's more if you did the numbers and worked out, even if you reinvested every dollar of profit you make after tax, how many more homes a year that would enable you to be able to build based on equity requirements,
Yeah.
and you map that out for a growth chart, your growth just can't get there.
No.
Like if you built, and crude numbers, if you built 10 homes and say you need 2 million bucks to do your 10 homes and say you make 100 grand a house, you pay your tax, you've got 600 grand, and now you've got 2.6 million. You can now only build 13 homes next year before you pay yourself.
Yeah.
It's like, how would you ever get to the point of being able to do, like we did 1 year, we went from 60 houses to 180
Yeah. Right.
and 180 to 350. And it's just, there is a degree of, you look at what the UK does, it's all second tier finance, so to speak.
Right.
Australia is similar, and then New Zealand follows Australia, who follows London.
Mm.
And you want a bit of everything. Obviously, you want to go wide, not deep with your funding, because if that's your biggest risk, you can't say, something went wrong and I only had one funder and one person I dealt with, and they pulled the rug on me when the market got hard, as opposed to we went wide. So we've got options to protect everyone because
Yeah.
clients rely on us, employees, contractors, suppliers. And why do you want to put that in the hands of one bank with one bank manager? And if they
Yeah.
want to let you use other banks, then you can't really use them out of principle and out of just obligations to ensure that everyone's always protected.
Yeah. So you're trying to achieve a bit of stability, spreading risk. Did it cost you more than going with a bank?
Yes and no, in the sense of we grew at scale without giving away equity.
Yeah.
And then, yes, they were paying 10% interest. But if you're paying a bank, say 6%, and they charge you a 1 or 2% fee, then a line fee, etc., and
Yeah.
if you're building at the right speed, you turn that money over twice a year, and then it would it wouldn't be as much more as what you think.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm not surprised.
Yeah. Um,
And because it has do you know of many other developers that have done it that way? Most would just work with the bank or private investors.
no, a
Eh?
lot have tried or have. Um, it's like anything. It's easy to look from the outside and say, well, they just did this and did that, and that's why that happened, or they
Yeah.
were lucky, or the market was going up, or whatever it is. And there are people that have also successfully done that similar model. But it would be way easier if I had three banks say, hey, Blair, here's our parameters, here's what you can do, give us a product like that, and we'll fund it.
Yeah.
It's always only the private sector, which should be banks, but isn't for some reason. So we have some good partners in the sort of finance market.
Mm.
And they're not banks, but they're very good to deal with. I think our main funder, sort of from a finance company perspective, we've done about $400 million worth of projects with.
Yeah.
And you get that plus our fund, and that's enough to do perhaps what we need to do. And it's more like there's a price for the ease of business. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like no one's going to buy a cheaper building product if it's hard to get, doesn't arrive on time, the
Yeah.
invoices roll, and it's
Yeah.
no different than funding a development.
Yeah. Yeah. Speed and it's not quite
Ease of
liquidity,
business,
but ease of capital, right?
ease, transparency,
Time and
communication. And it's like if you got the right finance company or funder and you call the person that makes the decisions and just say,
yeah.
just give me a yes or a no or what information you need, as
Yeah.
opposed to we'll take it to our panel, we want this, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
And time, as you know, in development's the devil. And then it's more if you're waiting 3 months to get approved from a bank, that's like how do you confirm the site? How do you start selling it?
Yeah.
It's more about relationships. It's hard to have relationships with a bank because you can only have the individual, which might get transferred to a different position. They might leave. And I still think we'll be following the rest of Australia and the UK, where that second tier market, so to speak, will keep growing and growing. And
Yeah.
banks make enough money off mortgages where they can't really be bothered actually doing property finance, even though they're going to say they will. And they will do it, but it's more when you're small and medium size, that's perfect. But if you're on a scale, I'd love to know what bank you use to do 300 homes a year.
Yeah. So, talk to me about innovating your building methodology.
But as far as innovation, I always say I like to think, I always call it the pinata test, is going, any product you're using, want to use, whatever, smash the shit out of it and see if it's still standing. And it's more going, I don't mind if my thought process is wrong, but I've got one. And I like to think if you're a customer and go, why do you use this product or this insulation or that framing or this
Hmm.
brand of lights, etc. I like to think that I've gone through the process of being able to justify why we do that. And I think that's a
Yeah.
lot of the issue with the industry, as you know. There's just stuff specified because it was specified in isolation with no consideration,
Yeah.
and also without being specified by someone that's often in the field of doing the actual work of that product.
Yeah.
So that was sort of just going based things of if we use LVL framing, yes, it's more expensive, but it makes sense. You leave it outside for a week next to a bit of normal SG8, one's got a huge bow, one doesn't. You
Yeah.
don't want to go back to a house to have maintenance because someone moves in, they breathe, turn heat pump off and on, and you've got a bit of 4x2 SG8 struggling not to twist and warp, pops the
Yeah.
gym, it's a painter for a day. And then it's just going through the whole process of what's our flooring. If strand ball gets wet during construction, it swells up, then it squeaks. What's the cost of plywood? Then we need ply underlay. What's the cost of, say, mag block? What's the cost of, say, Hebel graded concrete?
Yeah.
It was just going through that process.
I'm guilty of blaming our sector for not innovating and not changing. But you raise a really valid point that actually there's a point where mum and dad need to be educated so that they understand the value in some of those changes. You can't always just push it through. And it's something that I remember you guys doing really well right from the start. You used to make videos, stick them on Facebook, and tell people about how you were building the buildings and the products that were going into
And
them
that
and
came
why
from
they
you
were
guys.
better.
You guys were responsible for that. I remember I used to go to a client's house with like a little one of those plastic bins, and I'd have a bit of LVL framing, bit of mammoth, bit of
Yeah.
maglock. I'd literally be like that. But I think it's more like customers are always buying a house is always going to be a big decision, always going to be terrifying. There's always going to be outside influence, whether it's the lawyer, the banker, the
Yeah.
mortgage broker, the valuer, their friends, family, aunt, uncle, etc. So it's more going, I expect you and I hope you do go around the marketplace because you should
Mm.
be looking at different options. And I hope you end up back with us. And if not, I'd love to at least know what the thing was that made you go the way you did. But
Yeah.
also, I want to explain to you how we build our homes, why we build them that way, for the sole purpose of hopefully making sure that you ask the right questions when you go around the market if you believe one of the things I talked to you about is important to you. And
Well, and typically people don't have a a reason other than price.
New Zealand's got a culture of it meets code. I want the biggest possible house. I need it to be 4 bedroom. And then I don't mind if it's got one heat pump in the living room, but my bedroom's miles away and it's going to be freezing cold because I never
Yeah.
thought about that till I moved in. But I'm just going to tell myself it's okay because I've worked hard, paid my mortgage, and have a bit of yard to mow every weekend.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think this is one of the interesting things is you guys really have a long-term mentality. You know that this isn't your last development. You're going to keep doing it. You've got a vision to kind of provide housing, and that changes the way that you're approaching everything compared to a developer who's like, oh, particularly if we look back a few years ago, where everybody was wanting to get in on it, and there was a scramble for land, and you had, first-time
I
developers
think.
bought some land, no idea what they're doing, but that was only their only objective was to make some money on that development.
But a lot of that is just a problem with the industry, so to speak. And it's a very complex issue, as you know. It's more, if you want an example of what people say you should do, of, oh, ask this person, get that consultant, do this, do that. The answer is you get Kiwi Build and you get KO.
Hmm.
That's an example of employ anyone you want. We own the land. You don't need to make money. All we need to do is deliver housing. And then you get people going, this idea, SIPS panels, the healthy home this, or Energy Star 10, whatever. And the result was hundreds of millions lost and wasted, very low outcome, no benefits from that volume of it going through the construction industry. So then you learn this is an industry where you cannot ask everyone that's qualified in their exact profession they work their entire life for to actually give you an answer that works collectively with everyone else's to get an outcome. And there's very few industries like that. If I ask my
Yeah.
dentist and a few dentists, what should I do? I'll get an outcome.
Yeah.
If I ask lawyers are subjective to get paid to keep stuff on, but if you ask holland accountants, should I do this like?
Yeah.
Winery construction, I say the best example is you might have a fire engineer say you need to make your window narrower to
Yeah.
comply. Then you take the urban design, it says you now need to make it wider. Neither party's wrong in their own profession, but
Yeah.
the other one will not say that one is more or less important than the other. And you go round and round and round in circles. And then you learn there might be, say, 6 people involved like that. Say acoustic, fire, urban design, structure, architecture. Then you learn
Hmm.
that there's those same 6 people on council side. And then you go, everyone wants $300 an hour. There's 1,800 from your side, plus you charge 1,800 from council side. And it's $3,600 an hour for people to argue about the size of a window. And then you
Yeah.
rely on every single plan being updated to capture all that.
Yeah.
No one's technically wrong, and no one's willing just to not even back down. That's the problem, though, right there.
Yeah. Is there a fix?
There is, but it's unorthodox, and it's literally people need to like what I would want for the industry is we have to empower the tradespeople that actually have done this every day for their career. Like, why do we get someone that has never put a drain in the ground, drawing where the drains go and expecting if the drain in the ground's right? We want to
Yeah.
do now is like get my drain layer into the office. We literally get highlighters and a coffee, and it's just here is where the drains are. Here's the heights of it. Let's get highlighters and draw the red line, the green line, the blue line, and then based on all the jobs you've done over your 30 years, where would you put the manholes, this and that?
Hmm.
And then I get my architect to draw the lines properly that's on highlighter, and then I lodge that to council. And
Yeah.
I thought the problem with the industry is if that drain layer knew what a civil engineer would have charged to probably get it wrong, he would not be a drain layer, would be a civil engineer and be with highlighters all day just drawing stuff like that. And more, the industry needs to work together more with the people on the ground, but the people on the ground don't necessarily respect all consultants, so to speak, and the
Yeah.
consultants either respect or see the value in talking to them because then they feel undermined. And the trades have a bad have would have had most trades, if not all, would have had a bad experience with the consultant saying you've done this wrong when they know that it's actually not wrong.
Yeah.
No, it's meta knowledge no one puts value on. Why does the
Yeah.
person who put a drain in the ground draw them? Why is there not someone that works together with them to draw it?
Yeah.
Why can't I go to council once I lodge my building consent, lock myself in a room on a screen with everyone that needs to look at the plans, and you do not leave that room until you've gone through every page that I need to know about, written one list of things you need to clarify. By the end of that day, you have a consent.
Yeah. Well, what's interesting though, because that's what they tried to do with Consentium, and when you then make that
Anti-competitive
great if
housing.
you can replicate it, right? But when you make that the objective, consenting faster, then all those people go, well, it'd be much faster, Blair, if you just change it, just don't do anything different. Just keep everything within code, just
It's
build
so hard. That's what I
3604.
try to do.
and we won't, and then it's easy. We can all go, yep, 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 yep.
I think you've got to measure an objective outcomes, not on time, because it's human nature, say if you're in council, not to pick on council, but if you're going, shit, I don't have any consents to work on, you'll fear for your job. So when you get
Yeah.
a without realizing it, you'll be like, oh, I'll be extra detailed or RFI that. We're going to set, I was sort of saying to someone at council the other day, I said, there's now privatized council processing companies. There'll be more and more. I do not want you to have to make your entire consenting team redundant. But that's what will happen if councils don't innovate to some degree, because the private sector will win and beat you. But it's also be complicated having a PIM from you, engineering approval here, building consent over there, RMA there, subdivision there. But I said, why don't you just lead the charge in local councils, local government, and say, what's our point of difference to compete? And it might be, like you said, standardization. If you lodge your plans in this format with this cover sheet, and we know that every set of plans, page 4 is H1 calcs, page 6 is anything to do with bloody risk matrix. Like,
Yep.
anyway, if you go with this template format and this cover letter, we then will guarantee you what the fees are for that building consent. And then you go to your staff and go, we don't care about the time. It's more about what our average days to process are and how many consents an individual can process, and try have people reassociate their value and their outcomes, not in their time being busy. And then going, as council will do a template model, standardization. If you do this format, we'll guarantee the fees will be X. And then you roll out to other councils. Because why is it that there's not just a template of every consent in New Zealand? Page 4 is always H1 and page 47 is always this. Instead,
Yeah.
it's like, if you're a QS, I have sympathy for you, because like you price one job for one company, it's this way. Another job's done that way. And there's no reason why there shouldn't just be literally a complete template. And I sort of say to my design team, which they don't really, not thrilled at me for, I'm like, we just want Lego set plans. Lego has proven you can get someone that's never built a car before, follow step by step by step, and end up with a car. And if they have a mistake, they go back by back by back and fix it.
Yeah.
We want plans to be as close to that as possible. And instead of trying to put everything on the plans where it's too complex and confusing, we just need a list of, here's what you might fuck up. Because how good would it be to go to work and on your desk is, hey Blair, here's what you might get wrong today, and here's step by step for what you're meant to do. And I'm like, every trade would actually love that. Negative report of what to watch out for, and then step by step plans. Because if you can't explain how to build it step by step as the person who drew it on a computer, but then you expect someone to do that on site with far bigger consequences if they get it wrong, you just shouldn't be in the industry. And architects back in Latin terms used to be designer builder, whereas now, as you know, it's every year's gone like that.
Yeah.
And it needs to come closer back together, which you get from someone taking the first step, which is either better quality plans that have been more thought through with the perception of how does the person on site use this, or it's engaging through the current process with those contractors to then, once the plans are done, they actually understand them, even if they're not being refined from a different format. But it's more bringing together the designer builder more together, and then working with councils of, I want to lock you in a room with me. I'll go through every single part of the building code, E1, E2, C1 to 6. Here's all the different plan sets. Here's where it is. I've made a chat bot where you can just type into the chat bot what page to find something on. But by the end of the day, I expect consent. I want guaranteed fees of this. But there's no one incentivized in the industry to do so, because obviously the architect doesn't care about cost. An architect won't challenge a consultant. Consultant won't challenge another consultant. A builder won't bother challenging the architect or a consultant. If the builder's on a cost plus model, there's no cost incentive there to reduce costs, and the client usually isn't experienced enough to challenge anyone anywhere in that process. And I wonder why we are where we are.
I want to wind back to where we were before, and we got off on a sidetrack there, but I want to wind back to, what are some of the things that you started to do differently to build differently and build faster and more cost effectively, but maintain a really high quality product?
Well, like the IT wall one, I'm just like, I had this idea of, we always lose time on site because when you have to manually stand your IT wall partitions, you're sitting there, you got everyone sitting there. And we've tried pods before. We've done mid-floor cassettes for most jobs. And I thought pods don't work that well because you've got one pod per truck. So it's like not very efficient transport wise. Mid-floors are good because they stack up. You've got a lot on a truck. I'm like, why don't we build IT walls and stack them on a truck. It's no different than how you have concrete tilt panels, but
Yep.
you have mid floors, they're just vertical, and then you go,
Yep.
what's acoustic going to look like? What's fire going to look like? Do you drop both frames in at once, or do you tie them together? And then you just talk to each person, get them together, the builder, the trucking person, the manufacturer, the frame and truss company, and go, could this work? And then you got to find a test job, so to speak. But you're also going to have partnerships where it's we don't know what this will cost or if it'll work, but just we'll figure it out after it's done. And that's the
You're
hard.
not talking about using a different IT wall system. You're talking about putting it together differently or putting it together
I
off
made,
site or
I made a custom IT wall that performed better than what I was using and from competitors, and uses competitors' products, but in a different makeup than what their own system is. Um, with the main thing I wanted to achieve is, why can't I make a wall that's full length with the IT wall already on? Because otherwise the crane's stopping and I can't drop in my next set of mid floors. And then it's hundreds of tiny things. It's like,
yeah.
it's so hard to quantify, but the main thing you need is just the right people and the respect of getting outcomes where you've got outcomes for them and they've got outcomes for you, and actually working with them and always saying like, I need you as much as you need me, if not more. So I always say it's a chain and an anchor on a boat. If a few links take the piss, everyone suffers.
Yeah.
In an industry where everyone's got experience with having someone not pay them, being ripped off, etc. That's where like we've got one Sparky, say 4 or 5 building inks that some have worked for us for over 10 years,
Mm.
because it's the shit that you can't actually measure that makes the biggest difference.
Mm.
You
Yeah.
need
But
people.
the other thing I see with you, Blair, and I've said to others about, you know, to others about you guys with us, is you guys are one of the few people, and because you are developing, building, involved in design, but one of the few people I know who go, that seems like a good idea, we'll give it a crack. And you may or may not do it, but you do the process you just talked about where you actually see if you can try and do it differently. Very few people in the industry invest time in trying new things.
It's often not a new thing because I don't want to innovate too much. You don't want risk of new products. There's always
Yeah.
when you change, but it's literally just going, it's asking the question of why, like a child actually.
Yeah.
Why do you think this should be the foundation solution?
Yeah.
What are the alternatives you've looked at? What is the cost difference between the two? What is the time difference? Okay,
Yeah.
why should we use that product? What are the alternatives to that product? Do you know what the cost difference or warranty difference is? And if that person can't explain it and they were the ones that put that on the plan, then are they really a qualified professional?
Okay, one that I've seen you trying lately is putting all your services above the
Yeah, for the
concrete
apartments.
floor, right? But and into the floor rather than trying to run everything through the ceiling.
Yeah.
How's that going? How's it landed? Do you like it? You keep doing it, or it was good but not again?
In my head, I was just like, as principle. So my thought process was, why do we use concrete to say this apartment building? It's like, well, it's fire, acoustics, and structure. And I think
Yep.
many people disagree. They go, what do we then normally do as an industry? Well, what we do is we drill the fuck out of it, put fire collars on with people on mobile scaffold, lag the pipe for acoustics, and then if an apartment above yours leaks, it's going to affect your apartment that you're in. I'm
Yeah.
like, that doesn't make much sense. So I'm like, as you know, the alternative to that is put it inside a subfloor, like a situ timber floor. And I'm like, pros and cons. I'm like, going to make the building taller maybe, but I've got no fire collars apart from a stack per unit and not vent, whatever it's called, per unit.
Yep.
And I'm like, I've got the cost of timber, the labor, but now the plumber's working down on the ground, not up in
Yep.
the mobile scaffold. And
Yep.
I'm like, it means in the future someone could literally gut the whole apartment apart from those 2 pipes and change where their bathroom is, where their kitchen is, because you've got the fall.
Yeah.
It's like if there's ever a leak, it's going to be contained and not affect the apartment below. And then say an average unit would have 7 penetrations. There's 7 per floor. That's 49 a floor times 5 floors. Let's call it for math's sake, 5 fives, 250 times 2 is 500 penetrations,
Yeah.
500 fire collars, pipe lagging, and going, I think the timber subfloor will actually probably be cheaper, even though everyone will tell me it's more expensive. And that's actually pretty much how it worked out. Um,
Really?
But it was just one of those things that it just made logical sense. Like, why drill through your concrete for an acoustic structure? Why have your neighbor impacted if there's a problem? Why get rid of the ability to future-proof the apartments to be remodeled based on like the price point they sit in?
Yeah.
That- What would I want if I was to buy one? And it just made so much sense to me in my head. And for example, I was like, what kind of fire collar are we using? Everyone gives you blank stares. So the whole lot of research and found a fire collar where before you pour the ribbon infill floor, you put it on the timber, put 3 screws in it, pour your concrete, and when you're ready to put your pipe in, you cut the top off to height, done. So like no
Right.
core drilling. And then I managed to remove half the amount of stacks in the apartments by swapping the sink with the appliances to get enough
Ah,
fall.
yeah.
And between that, halving the stacks, I might have taken like 700 penetrations and fire collars and lagging. And it's like that times say 30 items that are the difference of these projects working or not, plus
Yeah.
the time compound. But it was literally that example you said about the timber floor. It's just going, well, why are we using concrete? Okay, well then if we're doing that, why should we go drill the shit through it? Is there an alternative? It
Mm.
just made sense to me. And
Yeah.
adamant it was cheaper.
So have you finished that project, or is that on one that's
We've got carpet down at the moment.
yeah.
But yeah, everyone liked it, raved about it. And then you go, well, did they say that because they might have made way more money because they priced it based on being the former? But then it's going, well, if I work out alone just how many fire collars I saved, photos of fire collars, stickers on each fire collars, fire inspections, pipe lagging is not cheap, mobile scaffold, add extra time,
Yeah.
you're at least neutral with a better outcome. Yeah.
Well, mate, I applaud your enthusiasm, your energy, your willingness to give new things a go, and to push back, to ask why, and to be willing to be wrong. And I'm really glad that we've had this opportunity to have this talk. You guys get a lot of media coverage, but it doesn't go into this stuff. It goes so much into a lot of the surface stuff, and a lot of people don't see.
We're an easy target. But no, you and Lester have a huge amount to play in probably how we ended up building how we do, just through starting the conversation of why do we do this? Why do we use that? So
Mm,
I really appreciate what you both have done for us and my knowledge and thought process all those years ago, because otherwise I probably wouldn't have thought the way I do about building
yeah.
products and the alternatives. And you guys were definitely a big part of kickstarting that. So
Well, I think it seems to be working for you because there's not many people out there still building. Yeah, you've scaled back from where you were, but it's good. Hey, really appreciate your time, man.
I appreciate having me, and we have to catch up soon. So well
Sounds good.
overdue.
Well, thanks for joining us. I hope you found that interesting. Um, get in touch with us if there's anything else you want to touch base with, or you want to come down and see us at the centre. But yeah, once again, thank you, and thank you to Blair, and well done on the work that they're putting in, and the long-term vision and attitude that they're taking. So thanks again, and we will catch you on the next one.